So the interactive model of listening comprehension is an imitation in our minds of what listening comprehension is involved. This was an idea of Clark, and Richards. So according to the interactive model of listening comprehension, the first thing you do is the processing of raw speech and holding an image of it in short-term memory. This could be constituents such as phrases, glosses, sentences, cohesion markers, intonations, and even stress patterns. So the raw speech is what you put in your mind. That helps you determine the type of speech event to interpret the perceived message. So that's the second aspect, second node of the model. So it makes you realize, oh, are you doing a conversation? Are you doing a speech? Is this a radio broadcast? So you determine the speech event. And then when you know this, when you think of the speech event, you try to infer the speaker's objectives. I wonder why he's trying to talk. And you base that on the type of speech event, on the context, and the content. So depending on the event, the context, and the content, you have the raw speech, you have the raw message in your mind as an image. Then you realize what type of listening event it is. So you infer the speaker's objectives. Then when you listen, the speaker provides facts, ideas. Based on that, you recall background information, what you know about what the speaker is saying. So that's bringing to mind information from one's schema. Schema is your what you know about the world. So you bring to mind information from what you know about the world that's relevant to the situation. For example, the speaker starts talking about Jose Rizal. You recall your background information about Jose Rizal. Okay? And then you assign literal meaning to the utterance. You start with the literal meaning. You listen and you think of it in terms of literal terms. And then when you realize that literal meaning cannot apply, that's the time that you assign the intended meaning to the utterance. So if you realize that the literal meaning can apply, so you assign the literal meaning as the intended meaning. But if you realize that you cannot assign a literal meaning, then the intended meaning you assign is something besides literal meaning. Okay, so what you have is the perceived meaning is matched with your intended meaning, with the speaker's intended meaning. And when your perceived meaning is matched correctly with the intended meaning of the speaker, then there is success. Okay, now, if there are miscues, psychological barriers, or other performance variables, then there could be a breakdown in processing meaning. So, for example, you thought the speaker was talking about Jose Rizal, but then you realize he's talking about somebody else. Okay, there was a momentary breakdown in the processing of the meaning because there was a miscue, there were psychological barriers such as your emotions and other factors or performance variables. So you also think you determine whether information should be retained in short-term or long-term memory. You think, is this important enough to be stored in long-term memory or maybe just in short-term memory? And finally, class, as part of the interactive model of listening comprehension, you delete the actual form in which the message was originally received. What you remember is the meaning. You delete the form. So class, this is the point where I talk about my Italian office mate when I was still working as a computer programmer in Makati. Our company was multinational and I had an Italian classmate, Italian office mate. And during that time, Britney Spears' song was very popular. And that song was Hit Me Baby One More Time. Hit Me Baby One More Time. I'm sure many of you are familiar with that. But there was a time when my Italian office mate was singing that song and he would go, Give me a sign. Please hit me, baby, once again. And so it was funny because he knew the message, but the form he forgot. It should actually be something like this. Give me a sign. Hit me, baby, one more time. So my Italian office mate remembered the meaning that it's about hitting, but he forgot the actual form. So he said, Give me a sign. Please hit me, baby, once again. So it was funny. So I told him, I wrote the lyrics, that part of the lyrics on a piece of paper for him. And every time he would sing that, he would look for the piece of paper. So he would go, Give me a sign. And then he would shuffle his table looking for the paper. And then when he finds the paper, hit me, baby, one more time. Okay, so that's an illustration that we forget the actual form. What we remember is the meaning. Okay, that is the interactive model of listening.